The summer festival in Maplewood was alive with the vibrant colors of laughter, music, and the sweet scent of cotton candy wafting through the air. I stood behind my booth, surrounded by my artwork, a mix of bright landscapes and moody portraits, each piece a reflection of my emotions. The chatter of families and friends filled the atmosphere, and for a moment, I felt completely at peace. Yet, beneath that peace lay an undercurrent of tension, particularly as I caught sight of Jake. Jake, my charming childhood sweetheart, was effortlessly mingling with the crowd. His tousled hair and easy smile made him a magnet for attention, and my heart fluttered at the familiar sight. "Emily, look at this one," he exclaimed, pointing to a painting of a serene sunset over the lake, which I had poured my heart into. "It's my favorite," I replied, feeling a warm blush creep into my cheeks. I wanted to capture how magical the evenings are here. "Magical just like you," he said, his eyes sparkling with mischief. The flirtation was harmless, but it stirred something deep within me, a reminder of the affection we'd shared over the years. As we reminisced about our childhood adventures, I noticed Ryan lingering at the edge of the crowd. He was new to Maplewood, a brooding figure with an intensity that was hard to ignore. Even from afar, I could feel the weight of his gaze, the way it seemed to cut through the merriment around us. I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting as a mix of emotions flooded in, attraction, confusion, and guilt. "Hey, is he still watching us?" Jake asked, following my line of sight. There was an edge to his voice, a hint of possessiveness that made my heart race. "Who, Ryan?" "He's just observing." "I think he's shy," I replied, trying to downplay the situation. "Shy or not, he's got this vibe that rubs me the wrong way." "I don't trust him," Jake said, crossing his arms. The tension grew palpable, like an electrical charge in the air between us. As the festival continued, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Later that night, Jake and I found ourselves walking hand in hand to the lake, the setting sun casting a warm glow over the water. The world felt magical, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. "Do you remember when we used to come here as kids?" Jake asked, nostalgia lacing his voice. "We'd make those stupid wishes on the shooting stars." "Of course," I said, my heart swelling at the memory. "I wish for us to always be together." He turned to me, his expression serious. "And what if that wish came true? What if we could just forget everything else, just you and me?" Before I could respond, a shadow fell over us. Ryan approached, his features tense, eyes dark and stormy. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, his voice low but firm. "What's going on, Ryan?" I asked, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "I can't stand this. You're here with him, but you have to know that things aren't as simple as they seem," he spat, his emotions bubbling to the surface. Jake stepped forward, his jaw set. "Back off, Ryan. This is between Emily and me." "No, it's not just about you," Ryan argued, his fists clenched. "Emily deserves to know the truth about me, about everything." I felt caught in the middle, my heart racing as old wounds were reopened. "Can we just talk about this calmly?" I pleaded, desperate to diffuse the situation. "Calmly? How can I be calm when I see you both here, acting like everything is perfect?" Ryan shot back, his voice rising. "You have a choice to make, Emily. You need to decide before it's too late." The weight of his words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I looked from Jake's worried face to Ryan's fierce gaze, feeling the chasm of uncertainty widen between us. As the confrontation simmered, my phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking the tension. I hesitated before pulling it out. The message on the screen sent a chill down my spine. "You have to choose. Or else." "Who was that?" Jake asked, his eyes narrowing. I don't know," I stammered, my heart racing. The festival lights blurred as panic set in. I glanced at Ryan, whose expression darkened, and then back at Jake, feeling the weight of the decision I'd soon have to make. The night was far from over, and the real battle had only just begun. The sun peeked through the window of the small coffee shop, casting warm rays onto the wooden tables. I sat alone at my usual spot, nervously stirring my coffee, the steam curling up like my thoughts, twisting and turning, never settling. Ryan entered, and my heart skipped a beat. He looked around, his eyes searching for me, and when they landed, a hint of a smile broke through his otherwise brooding demeanor. "Hey," he said, sliding into the chair across from me. "Thanks for meeting me." "Of course," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I wanted to talk. As we shared stories about our dreams, I felt a warmth growing between us, a connection that seemed both exhilarating and terrifying. I've always wanted to be an artist, I confessed, my fingers tracing the rim of my cup. But sometimes, I wonder if I'm good enough. Ryan leaned closer, his intense gaze locking onto mine. "Emily, you're incredibly talented. I've seen your work. It's raw and honest. You have something special." His words washed over me, filling the spaces of doubt I'd carried for so long. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." He shifted slightly, his expression darkening. "But then there's the other side of me. I've struggled with anger. It's hard to explain, but sometimes I feel like I'm fighting my own demons." "Demons?" I echoed, intrigued but cautious. "What do you mean?" Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "When I moved here, I was trying to escape my past. I did some things I'm not proud of. It's like a shadow that follows me. I felt a pang of sympathy. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." "No, I should," he insisted, his voice low. "I don't want to scare you away, but I think you deserve to know. I've lost control before. It's why I keep people at arm's length." "Maybe," I said, "but I think everyone has their struggles. It's what makes us human." He studied me for a moment, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. "But I don't want to hurt you, Emily. I care about you, and that scares me." His admission sent a thrill down my spine. "I care about you too, Ryan. But this, whatever this is, it feels complicated." Just then, the bell jingled as the door opened, and Jake walked in, his presence instantly changing the atmosphere. I felt my stomach drop. He spotted us, and his expression shifted from casual to tense in an instant. "Hey, I was just..." Jake began but stopped short, his gaze darting between us. "What's going on?" "Just catching up," I said quickly, my heart racing. Jake's eyes narrowed slightly, and I could sense the jealousy simmering beneath the surface. "Right," he said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Well, I just came to grab a coffee." Ryan cleared his throat, the tension palpable. "We were just talking about art and some personal stuff." Jake's jaw clenched. "Personal stuff? Like what?" I interjected, wanting to diffuse the situation. "It's nothing. Just some thoughts about our futures, you know?" Jake's gaze lingered on Ryan. "You sure about that?" he challenged, his tone icy. Ryan leaned back, visibly uncomfortable. "Yeah, it's nothing to worry about, Jake." "Right," Jake said, sarcasm lacing his words. "Because you're just the kind of guy who doesn't stir up trouble." The air grew thick with unspoken words, and I felt trapped in the middle of their brewing storm. "Can we not do this here?" I pleaded, looking at both of them. "This is supposed to be a friendly catch-up." "Friendly?" Jake echoed, a hint of bitterness in his voice. "You think this is friendly? Let's just go outside," Ryan suggested, standing up. "Emily, if you need to talk..." "No," I interrupted, panic rising in my chest. "I don't want to talk outside. I want to talk here together." Jake's expression hardened, and I could see the protective instincts kicking in. "Emily, you deserve someone who won't bring you down, who won't drag you into their mess." "Who's dragging who?" Ryan shot back, his voice rising. "I'm not the one who's holding her back." I could feel the tension crackling in the air, and my heart raced. I needed to diffuse the situation before it escalated further. "Enough!" I cried, startling both of them into silence. This isn't helping anyone. The weight of the moment hung heavy, and I realized I stood at a crossroads. My heart was torn in directions I didn't want to acknowledge, and the stakes were higher than I ever imagined. The choices I made now could shatter everything I held dear. As I sat in the town hall, the faint smell of coffee mingling with the tension in the air, I could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on me. The community meeting was meant to address upcoming events, but it felt more like a battlefield. I glanced over at Jake, who was passionately advocating for my art showcase. His voice laced with a mix of pride and possessiveness. He spoke with fervor, gesturing animatedly as he extolled the virtues of my work, but I could see the tension in his jaw. The way he kept glancing towards Ryan, who was leaning against the back wall, arms crossed, a storm brewing in his dark eyes. Emily's art isn't just decoration. It's a reflection of our community, Jake said, his gaze darting towards Ryan. It deserves support, not just from us, but from everyone in Maplewood. I wanted to melt into my chair. I appreciated Jake's support, but the way his voice sharpened at the mention of Ryan only made the air thicker with unease. Ryan's lips curled into a sardonic smile, and I could tell he was unamused by Jake's bravado. Art can't just be a means to an end, Jake, Ryan shot back, stepping forward, his tone challenging. It should provoke thought, not just serve as a backdrop for a town that's afraid to face its own issues. The air crackled between them, and I felt the urge to intervene. Guys, can we just focus on the... But Jake cut me off, his voice rising. You wouldn't understand, Ryan. You're new here. You don't know what Emily means to us. I felt my cheeks flush as the spotlight shifted back to me, making me acutely aware of the delicate balance I was trying to maintain between these two men. Both of them represented different parts of my life, different paths, and now they were on a collision course. I wanted to scream, to tell them that I wasn't some prize to be fought over, but the words stuck in my throat. Later that evening, I found solace in the cozy coffee shop where Sarah worked. I needed her perspective. Her steady, pragmatic nature always helped ground me. As I settled into my favorite booth, Sarah approached with a steaming cup of chamomile tea. "Hey, Em," she said, her brow furrowed with concern as she slid into the seat across from me. "What's going on? You've been quiet since the meeting." I sighed, my fingers tracing the rim of the cup. It's Jake and Ryan. They're at each other's throats, and I don't know how to handle it. I feel like I'm being pulled in two different directions. Sarah leaned in, her voice low and serious. "Look, Emily, you have to be careful. Ryan has a past, a dark one. I just don't want you to get hurt. I know Jake loves you, and he's always been there for you. But Ryan, he understands me in a way Jake doesn't. He sees my art for what it truly is." I replied, my heart racing as I spoke. "He gets the depth behind it." "Depth doesn't matter if it comes with danger," she said firmly. "Think about what you're getting into. Loyalty matters, Em. You've known Jake forever." I nodded, but her words echoed in my mind, mingling with my own doubts. Was I being foolish? Was I risking everything I held dear? Just then, my phone buzzed on the table, and my heart dropped as I saw the sender. Unknown. The message read, "You don't want to find out what happens if you choose wrong." I looked around, my pulse quickening. The cozy shop felt suddenly stifling. The familiar faces of customers now blurred by a sense of impending doom. "Sarah, did you see that?" I whispered, my voice trembling. She leaned over, her eyes widening as she read the message. "Emily, who is that? Do you think it's a prank?" "I don't know," I stammered, my mind racing. "But it feels serious. Maybe you should talk to Jake. He might know something," she suggested, but I shook my head. The last thing I wanted was to drag him into this mess. "I can't. Not right now," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of the threat loomed over me, a dark cloud that threatened to consume everything. As I left the coffee shop, the streets of Maplewood seemed less inviting. Every shadow felt like a whisper, every rustle of leaves a reminder that I was being watched. I quickened my pace, my heart racing as I replayed Sarah's warnings and the ominous message in my mind. choices, consequences, and the suffocating fear that maybe, just maybe, I was already too deep into this tangled web of emotions and threats to turn back. The evening air was thick with tension as I prepared for what I hoped would be a simple dinner with Jake and Ryan. I had set a beautiful table with my favorite dishes, hoping to ease the unease that had been simmering between the three of us. The soft glow of candlelight flickered against the walls of my cozy living room, but the warmth it provided felt cold in my heart. "Hey, Em, smells amazing in here," Jake called out as he entered, his usual charm lighting up the room. He wore a bright smile, but I could see the tightness in his jaw. "Is that my favorite pasta?" "Of course. I thought it might lighten the mood," I replied, trying to sound optimistic. Ryan followed closely behind, his presence more of a shadow than a light. He offered a nod, but his eyes were distant, lost in thoughts I wished I could understand. As we settled around the table, I could feel the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. Jake and Ryan exchanged polite smiles, but the underlying tension was palpable. I tried to steer the conversation towards safe topics, reminiscing about our childhood adventures, but it was clear that both men were on edge. "Remember that time we tried to build a treehouse?" Jake laughed, his eyes sparkling with nostalgia, but Ryan's response was curt. "Yeah, and then it fell apart the next day." I felt the atmosphere shift. Ryan's voice was low, almost offensive, as if he was challenging Jake. "You always think you know what's best, don't you? It's like you're still trying to play the hero." "Ryan, come on. That was years ago," I interjected, hoping to diffuse the tension. "We were kids. We made mistakes." Jake's expression hardened. "It's not about the treehouse, is it? You're still trying to hold her back. Emily deserves more than your drama." "Drama?" Ryan's voice rose, and I could see the fury brewing in his dark eyes. "Maybe she deserves someone who doesn't pretend to have it all figured out. You've been holding onto her like a trophy." "Stop it, both of you," I shouted, my heart racing. The last thing I wanted was for this dinner to explode into chaos. "We're friends, remember?" But it was too late. The air crackled with aggression, and before I could react, Ryan stood up, leaning over the table. "You don't get to decide what's best for Emily. You've never understood what she really wants." Jake shot up too, fists clenched at his sides. "And you think you do? You think you can just waltz in here, acting like you know her better than I do?" In that moment, everything spiraled out of control. I leaped to my feet, trying to separate them. "Please, this is insane." My voice was desperate, but it barely registered above their shouts. The clatter of silverware echoed as Jake shoved Ryan, and I felt a surge of panic. "Jake, don't!" I screamed, but it was too late. In the chaos, Jake's elbow caught Ryan in the ribs, sending him stumbling backward. He crashed into a chair, which toppled over, and the sound echoed like a gunshot in the small room. "Ryan!" I rushed to his side, my heart pounding in my chest. He groaned, clutching his side, but I could see the fire in his eyes. "You're going to pay for that, Jake. You think you can just push me around?" Jake's face was pale, realization dawning as he looked at Ryan, who was slowly getting to his feet. "I didn't mean to." "Enough!" I shouted, feeling tears fill my eyes. The night I had envisioned, filled with laughter and reconnecting, had turned into a nightmare. "This isn't how friends act." Ryan pushed away from me, his expression fierce. "You think this is over? You have no idea what I'm capable of, Jake." He stormed toward the door, his fists clenched, and I felt a chill settle in the pit of my stomach. "Ryan, wait." I called out, but he was already gone, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was deafening, and I turned to Jake, who looked as shaken as I felt. "Emily, he started, but I cut him off. Just give me a moment." I needed time to process what had just happened. The foundations of our friendships felt shattered, and I didn't know how to put the pieces back together. As I stood there, the weight of the night pressed down on me, and all I could do was wonder how we had come to this point. The love triangle that had once felt so innocent was now a tangled web of anger and betrayal. and I was caught right in the middle. I woke up the next morning with a heavy heart. The events of the previous night, replaying in my mind like a haunting melody. I glanced at my phone, hoping for a message from Ryan, but there was nothing. Panic set in as I realized I hadn't seen him since he stormed out. Where could he be? I muttered to myself, rushing to get dressed. My chest felt tight, a mix of guilt and concern swirling within me. I decided to start my search at the local bar. It was a place Ryan often frequented to drown his sorrows, or so I had heard. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows on the pavement as I hurried down the street. My heart raced with each step, thoughts of Ryan's troubled past flooding my mind. What if he was in a dark place again? What if he needed me? As I entered the bar, the dim light and the smell of stale beer enveloped me. I scanned the room, my eyes landing on Ryan slouched over at the far end of the bar, a glass of whiskey in hand. My heart sank at the sight of him, looking so lost and broken. I walked over, my heart pounding in my chest. "Ryan," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper as I approached him. He looked up, his eyes clouded with a mixture of sadness and anger. "Emily," he replied, his tone flat. "What are you doing here?" "I came to find you. I was worried," I admitted, taking a seat beside him. "You shouldn't be here alone." He let out a bitter laugh. "Alone is all I've ever been, Em. It's better this way." He took another swig of his drink, and I could see how deeply he was spiraling. "No, it's not better. You need to talk about what happened last night," I urged, reaching out to touch his arm. "We can figure this out together." For a moment, he seemed to soften, his eyes locking onto mine. "Together? You mean you and Jake, right?" There was a sharpness in his voice that cut through my heart. "Jake and I, it's complicated," I stammered, feeling the weight of my own betrayal. "I didn't mean for things to go this far." "I didn't mean for what? To kiss me? To make me think I meant something to you?" He shot back, his voice rising. "You think I don't know? I saw you two together before all this." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat making it difficult to speak. "I care about you, Ryan. I do, but I don't want to hurt anyone." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. "You already have, but maybe we can stop pretending, just for a moment." In that instant, the air between us crackled with unspoken tension. Before I could react, he leaned in and pressed his lips against mine. The kiss was fervent, a chaotic mix of longing and desperation. I melted into him, forgetting the world around us, the pain, the betrayal. All that mattered was this moment, our lips moving in sync as if they had been destined to meet. Suddenly, the sound of glass shattering pulled me back to reality. I pulled away abruptly, my heart racing. "What are we doing?" I whispered, my breath shaky. "I don't know," he admitted, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "But I can't keep pretending I don't want you." Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me from the moment. I pulled it out, and my stomach dropped as I saw Jake's name flash across the screen. "I have to take this," I said, my heart pounding. I stepped outside to answer. "Emily, where are you?" Jake's voice was frantic. "I've been looking for you." I'm at the bar with Ryan," I confessed, my voice trembling. "What? Why?" His tone shifted from worry to something darker. "You need to come home. Now." "Jake, please. I need to talk to Ryan. Just give me a minute," I pleaded, feeling the weight of my choices crashing down on me. "Emily, I'm serious. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about us, and I can't." Suddenly, I heard a loud crash in the background, followed by a furious shout. My heart dropped. "Jake, what's happening?" I pressed, anxiety clawing at my insides. "Just get back here," he shouted before the line went dead. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was spiraling out of control. The moment of passion with Ryan faded into the background as dread crept in. I looked back into the bar, where Ryan sat, staring into his glass, lost in thought. With a deep breath, I made my decision. I needed to find Jake, to understand what was happening. I turned away from Ryan, my heart heavy, knowing that whatever awaited me would change everything. As I stepped into the cool evening air, a chilling scream pierced the night, echoing through the streets of Maplewood. My blood ran cold, and I knew that something sinister had occurred, leaving me anxious about the fate of everyone involved. The air in Maplewood felt heavy with a dread I couldn't shake off. News of Ryan's murder had spread like wildfire, igniting whispers and fear throughout our close-knit community. I could feel the weight of the stairs as I walked down the street, each gaze filled with suspicion and pity. My heart raced as I approached Sarah, who was sitting on the porch of her house, her expression a mixture of concern and confusion. "Emily," she said, rising to meet me, "you look like you've seen a ghost." "I don't know what to do, Sarah," I confessed, my voice trembling. "I feel like it's my fault. If I hadn't—" "Stop right there," she interrupted, her eyes fierce. "This is not your fault. You didn't pull the trigger, but you need to be honest with yourself about everything that's happened. You need to talk to Jake." Jake! The name felt foreign on my tongue, a reminder of the boy I had loved and the man I had hurt. What can I say? He's in jail for something I can't even comprehend. Tell him the truth about you and Ryan. He needs to know, Sarah urged, her voice softening. You owe him that. Just as I was about to respond, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. It was an unknown number, but something told me I had to answer. "Hello," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Emily, it's Officer Thompson. You need to come down to the station. We have some questions for you about Ryan's murder and about Jake." The world around me faded, and all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. "I'll be there," I managed to say before hanging up. Sarah's concerned eyes bore into mine, and I knew we were both thinking the same thing. This was about to get a lot worse. Once at the station, I was ushered into a small, sterile room. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, and I instinctively clasped my hands together to steady my shaking. Officer Thompson entered, his expression serious. "Emily, thank you for coming in. We need to ask you a few questions. Is Jake okay?" I blurted out, my voice quavering. "Jake is under arrest," he said flatly. "We have evidence linking him to Ryan's murder. We need to know what you know." My stomach dropped. "No, that's impossible. He wouldn't." "Emily, we found a witness who claims Jake was arguing with Ryan just before he died. We need the truth. Were you with Jake that night?" I hesitated, the weight of secrets pressing down on me like a boulder. "I was with Ryan," I finally admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I didn't. Did you know Ryan was planning something? Did he threaten you or Jake?" Officer Thompson pressed. I shook my head, tears welling in my eyes. "No, I swear. I thought he wanted to start over, to leave his past behind him. I didn't know he was in trouble." As I spoke, a new thought struck me, one that sent a chill down my spine. The text messages. Were they really from Ryan? Had he orchestrated this entire situation? My heart raced as I pieced together the fragments of my memories. "Wait, there's something I need to tell you. Ryan sent me messages. He was trying to manipulate me." "Manipulate you, how?" Thompson leaned forward, pen poised over his notepad. "He wanted me to choose between him and Jake. He made it seem like there was a threat if I didn't. I thought he was just trying to get me to break up with Jake. But what if it was something more?" Before I could finish my thought, the door swung open, and in walked a figure I had never expected to see. It was Ryan, alive, standing there with a smirk on his face. My mind reeled. He looked different, more confident. But the relief I felt was quickly overshadowed by disbelief. "Surprise, Emily," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Did you really think I'd let a little murder get in my way?" "Ryan, what the hell is going on?" I shouted, my heart racing as the reality of the situation crashed over me like a tidal wave. I staged my own death to escape, To start fresh, he admitted casually. Those messages? All part of the plan to get you away from Jake. I had to make it convincing. You manipulative bastard. I screamed, tears streaming down my cheeks. Everything I had felt for him twisted into rage. Now! Don't be dramatic. You have to admit, it worked perfectly. You're all mine now. But I wasn't his. Not anymore. As the truth hung in the air, friendship shattered around us, and I realized I was standing at a precipice, a choice that could change everything. In a town forever marked by betrayal, I had to decide how to move forward, not just for me, but for the broken pieces of everyone's lives that lay scattered around us.